West Bloomfield Fire Department recently visited Chico Elementary School to educate students on fire safety. Firefighters emphasized the need for working smoke alarms, regular testings in homes, and also talked about a lot of great key things that these kids and students should know. So joining me right here, live on The Splash, to talk a little bit more about that experience from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, we have firefighter and paramedic Patrick Donovan. Thank you for being here, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I think this is such a cool thing, and I'm coming from a child's perspective, to have a firefighter come to our school dressed up and just looking so heroic. So just my initial question to you is, how do you feel like the overall experience was for the students at Chico Elementary School?
Oh, I think it went very well. We have a great team. I got to bring, we had 4 members of the team come. I'd like to give a shout out to them. We had firefighter Barnes, Quickie, and Porter with me, and they did a great job. I think the kids took it very well. We haven't been in the schools that much since COVID, so we're just starting a new program. And it just so happened about 3 months ago, we just started up a program and we're starting it together about developing a public education program again and getting back in the schools. And then a PTO mom reached out to us and said that Chico wanted to talk and have us do a fire safety talk with the kids. So it worked out perfectly. We got to go out there and test it out, our program, and get some feedback and maybe what we can do better in the future. So it was a great time. I think the kids loved it. So.
Man, like I said, just starting off, like I imagine that the kids, and if you're watching on civiccentertv.com, you can see the students lined up giving you their full attention. I'm just taking myself back to when I was a child, seeing like a professional step in, especially like a firefighter with all the gear looking important, and you're just so fascinated, and then they get to telling their story. But this, like we said, was more about fire safety and important tips. So what important tips or lessons do you feel like the children should have taken away from your visit there?
Yeah, a couple of them is when to call 911. So we make sure that, they know the number. And if they can get a hold of a phone, to know it is 911, not 991. And the appropriate time to call it, we say, would you call 911 when you lost a game in Fortnite, and of course they yell no. And then what about if your family is sick, they're having trouble breathing or chest pain or a fire or car accident? That's the appropriate time to call 911. We talked a little bit more about fire safety with candles. Kids don't play with candles, not to play with matches or lighters. With the fireplace or a campfire, we tell them to leave it to the parents. Make sure that you're not touching that stuff, and if you find it, give it to an adult or a parent. We also talked about smoke alarms, and we talk about like when the sound goes off, what you're supposed to do. We give them a little scenario as well. So I say, if they're sleeping and you hear a smoke alarm go off, what are you gonna do? And I make sure you're gonna be yelling for your parents. You're gonna say the smoke alarm's going off. You want to go over to the door. You're gonna want to feel the door, see if it feels hot to you, or the handle. And if it does a little bit, you want to open it. And if there's a lot of smoke, we tell them, immediately close that door. Because the smoke is the one thing that's going to hurt you in a fire. So we tell them immediately close the door, put a blanket at the bottom of the door, go to the window, make sure you turn on the light. I tell them that's an important one too, because we can't see you if you're in the dark. So make sure you turn on the light.
Good point.
Go by the window, you can throw stuff out the window. And I said, the fire department will be there soon. The first thing we usually do is we do a 360 around a building if it's on fire, and we're looking for kids trapped or anybody trapped and where the fire's at. Another important thing with that same scenario is that if you can get out of your room, we want you to stay low. We want you to get out. We want you to stay out. And we also want you to have a meeting spot, which is super important. That's one that we actually make them homework for them. We said, when you go home, make sure you talk with your parents about a meeting spot. It could be a big tree that's in your front yard, your mailbox, or your neighbor's house. So make sure that you have a meeting place, because when we get there, if we don't know where you're at, we're going to assume that you're inside the building. So make sure you have a meeting spot. It's a very important one. So that's and we also do the old classic stop, drop, and roll with them. Close, catch on fire to stop, drop, cover your face, and roll. So
it's good to know that that classic tip has not phased out yet. The old classic stop, drop, and roll, always. And a few things that you talked about, I just want to reiterate. I love that. First and foremost, giving the scenarios to when a student should or should not call 911. It's crazy because even as an adult, some people call 911 for reasons that probably could be just another call for someone, or maybe just the local police. But you want to make sure you clear out those phone lines for that reason. Another point that you made is the smoke inhalation. That is one of the biggest drivers to having damage or injuries after a fire. Even if you aren't affected by the actual fire, that smoke, inhaling that smoke, can do a lot of damage. So thank you for highlighting that, putting that out there. I want to continuously get to a few other points, safety tips. But with me right here on the splash from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, firefighter and paramedic, Patrick Donovan, talking about the firefighters' recent visit to Chico Elementary to talk about fire safety. Now, getting back into those tips, there's a few other specific scenarios I want to talk about that I believe you brought up there. Having your bedroom closed, bedroom door closed. Why is it important to have your bedroom door closed, even when you're sleeping, in case of a fire possibility?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the fire safety tips that we do say too. I forgot to mention that as well. A super important one. There's a campaign, it's called Close Before You Doze. You close the door, it protects you. So if you hear that smoke alarm that's on the other side, there could be just a lot of smoke and fire on the other side of that door, and that door will give you probably 30 minutes of protection from a fire. So when you sleep with that door closed, it's protecting you from that smoke and that fire that's on the other side of that door, and it'll keep you safe until the fire department can come and rescue you from that window.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Mr. Donovan. I sleep with my door open very often, or at least cracked. So this is something that I even have to take into account. Something that we may have all looked over, but that is just something, another extra preventative caution or extra preventative step that we can all take in case of that emergency. Another thing I want you to talk about, the importance of cleaning your dryer vent. Can you just talk about how this can also be a fire hazard?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty common fire. We've had a few of them recently. So it is something important to talk about, and make sure you're cleaning your dryer vent, not just your lint trap, but also the dryer vent that's going all the way to the outside. It's something that people miss commonly, and you can have it professionally cleaned, or you can do it yourself. But that lint in there, once it gets it gets hot in there, it can ignite. It hits the ignition temperature because the dryers do produce a lot of heat. So if you do have a fire in there and all that lint is extremely flammable, and as soon as that stuff ignites, the fire will grow exponentially. So it's very important to make sure you keep your dryer vents clean.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, you know, in a household, you could mess around and set your dryer up to go, and then go maybe make a run or go to the grocery store, pick up the kids, and not knowing that that is also a fire hazard. It would be wise to stay home if you are running your dryer, your washer, and stuff like that. That way you can keep a close eye on those hazards. One thing, we spoke on escape plans. I want to go back to that very briefly, because you talked about the importance of having a mutual meeting place for everyone in the house. Are there any other important factors that people should consider whenever creating an escape plan for their home?
Yeah, you should always have 2 ways out of every room. So whether it's your bedroom, you have your door getting out, or a window, and every other place in your house, you should have at least, if you're in the living room, you have your rear door and your front door. You should always have 2 ways out. Give yourself options. You don't want to be trapped. You shouldn't have any bedrooms in the basement unless you have a fire escape down there. So you should always have 2 ways out of each room and each area of your house.
Seems like common sense, but common sense isn't common. And once again, it means a lot more coming from a professional like yourself. With me right here live on the splash from West Bloomfield Fire Department, firefighter and paramedic, Mr. Patrick Donovan, talking about their recent visit to Chico Elementary in West Bloomfield, giving them fire safety tips and best practices to deal with in case of those emergencies. We talked about how the students may feel from that experience, but what about you and from your point of view? What were some of the things that you gained from this experience teaching the kids at Chico?
Oh, it was a pleasure. So some of the kids in there, they're really funny. Yeah, they make you laugh. And when we came out of it, we had some good stories, because the kids they are characters, So, and then the teachers I thought were also really good. I enjoyed each talking to each one of those teachers. They're really that school has some really fine teachers, or has fine teachers. So it was a pleasure just to meet all the kids and meet the teachers and get out and, like I said, talk to the public. We haven't been
Hmm.
doing it as much since COVID, so it was a pleasure to go out and actually talk to the community a little bit. So.
Nah, I think that means a lot, like I said, for the students, for the community, and obviously for yourself as well. Can you just talk about maybe there's a kid that'll watch this over and maybe it was inspired at that actual event. Can you just talk about some of the most rewarding parts of being a firefighter right here in West Bloomfield?
West Bloomfield, we are supported great. We have so much support by the community, by the township. It's great. So it's hard to even describe how much fun we have. Like we have at our stations. I work with like my best friends. I have a great crew. We get to hang out, we bond, and then we go out and we get to help people. It's like it's a dream job. Um, I encourage almost anybody that's having trouble, like thinking about what they want to do when they're older, when they want to grow up. Think about being a firefighter. It's a rewarding job. And like I said, you get to hang out with some of your best friends, and then you get to go do some good deeds as well. So it's a very rewarding career.
It's good to hear that you enjoy your career, you're passionate about it, and you enjoy the people that you work with. That's all you could ever ask for. Mr. Donovan, we appreciate you. Any last messages or words for the community you want to give before we let you go?
Test your smoke alarms, and have a meeting spot. Create that for kitchens. Make sure that when you're cooking, if you have a grease fire, don't put water on it. You're gonna want to cover it, smother out the oxygen, and turn the heat off. So you're gonna turn the gas off. But also the smoke alarms is the most important. That's what's going to save your life if there's a fire at nighttime. So make sure you're testing those smoke alarms.
Please do. Can never test it too much. Once again, from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, firefighter and paramedic, Mr. Patrick Donovan, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.